Welcome to Disneyland Paris. Here, thrilling roller coasters, dozens of Disney characters, spectacular shows, and a fairy tale castle bring in millions of visitors a year. It's a place where even grown-ups believe in magic.
Basically, we're in the magic business, and you're not supposed to see the trickery or how it's done.
The Disney people have always kept the tricks of their trade a closely guarded secret. But now, for the first time, they've allowed cameras behind the scenes for a look at what it takes to make the magic come alive. Join us for Inside Disneyland Paris. Whether you travel by train or rent a car, the Magic Kingdom is easy to reach. Just 20 miles east of the great European city of Paris, it's a theme park where 12.5 million people go each year for thrills, family fun, and that unique brand of Disney magic. What started with a mouse and became a multi-billion-dollar company has produced this new pleasure zone in the global Disney empire. You probably already know about Disneyland in California and Walt Disney World in Florida. But you may not be familiar with Disney's latest extravaganza, Disneyland Paris. The whole place is like a giant movie set where stories are made real, thanks to Imagineers, people who mix imagination and engineering.
Entering the park is like going to see a movie. When you enter the auditorium, then it's dark, and then the movie begins, and you see the light on the silver screen. When you enter the park here, you don't see the park itself. You have to go under the station, and then you discover the rest of the park. And it's like you're on the set now. You're no more watching a movie, you're in the movie.
Just as a movie has different scenes, the park here has 5 different sets, which you can sample by steam train. On leaving Main Street, you reach Frontierland and the familiar scenes of the Wild West. Or you can choose the futuristic rides of Discoveryland, or enjoy the fairy tale world of Fantasyland. But let's begin our visit in Adventureland, where, like Indiana Jones, you brave the perils of the jungle. The archaeologists have fled. The gods are angry. Their revenge will be terrible. There's trouble ahead. This ride will have you begging for less time after time. 1 minute 45 of thrills that feel like a lifetime when you're on it. Indiana Jones, the Temple of Peril, was already one of the most popular rides in the park. But recently, the roller coaster, buried deep in the heart of Adventureland, has had a major revamp.
It's amazing.
It's very nice and exciting, very exciting.
I don't like it. You do a hoop to hoop backwards.
Absolute nightmare.
The idea of getting passengers to do the whole ride backwards happened almost by accident. It sounds simple enough, but the consequences have been huge. We persuaded one of the creative team who worked on the redesign of the ride to tell us how it happened.
The Temple of Peril originally opened in 1993. It was a victim of its own success to a certain extent because it became one of our most popular attractions. And so after a couple of years, we began to look at the attraction in the same way an artist looks at his painting after a couple of years and says, what could I do to embellish that, or what could I do to improve that?
At very busy times, the wait in the line for the ride was up to 2 hours long. So the first job was to redesign the carriages to fit in more passengers, 6, not 4, but at the same time make them lighter so that the ride would be more efficient. It was mission impossible for the engineers.
An absolute nightmare. How do you put 50% more people into a train which we know is already on the limit of its weight. We're actually automatically putting more people in, and they want us to take weight away from the train as well. An absolute nightmare.
The solution was to strip off all the excess decoration and weight inside the carriages, and to cram the seats together in a more upright position. Then came the suggestion, why not turn the seats around backwards?
We actually strapped an 8mm camera to the back of the existing ride vehicles and filmed the attraction backwards. We could then see what the guests were going to see.
It was a great idea. The ride would be thrilling. But it gave Andrew a new challenge to work on. Too many lateral Gs. Lateral Gs are what physicists call the effect of being thrown from one side to the other on a ride. Visitors call the same thing fun, but the key is to have them in moderation.
It's a white-knuckle ride. They're gripping this handrest like nobody's business. They're going forwards, and they anticipate a fraction of a second before they go into the bend which way they're going to brace their body. When you're going backwards, you don't know which way you're going to go. So obviously your head is constantly being rolled from one side to the other. For us, that's a problem.
The answer wasn't hard to find. The engineers got down to work on the track itself and started making changes.
As you can see here, this part of the track was modified. We've banked it more to prevent the body being thrown too far out as they go into the bend. There's other areas further down in which we have tweaked it in a different manner. But the whole idea is we don't want a smooth ride. It needs to be a slightly shaky ride, but we don't want to have excessive lateral Gs.
The engineers had cracked it. Now the designers had some thinking to do.
If you were in a movie theater, you'd be watching the screen. If you turned around behind you, you'd be looking straight into the projection room, which is obviously not something you really want to see. So in the same sense, in our attractions, we have ride vehicles that have our guests facing in a certain direction, so we're guiding what they're seeing. However, if the guests turn around and look behind them, then they're obviously going to see something that we don't wish them to see. And that was one of the major challenges, was trying to find a way of hiding and theming all these different lighting rigs, things that the guests shouldn't really see. I think a lot of people find Indiana Jones and the Temple of Peril backwards even more thrilling than when it went forwards. It's actually like a real Indiana Jones adventure. There's a surprise around every bend. You don't know when the drops are coming. You certainly don't know when the loop is coming. And I think that makes for an even more thrilling attraction.
In the end, they found answers to every problem. The only thing is, it's now more popular than ever, and you still have to wait to get on. So here's a tip. The new Fast Pass system lets you punch your ticket and then gives you a time to come back later. And when you do, you can go straight to the front of the line and have the ride of your life. The movie set magic carries on outside the park. There are 7 hotels to stay at, each with a different theme. At the Cheyenne, you're in cowboy country, with buildings inspired by Hollywood westerns. At the Santa Fe, you can almost feel the hot desert winds blowing through the Mexican-style pueblos. There's urban chic at the New York, and at the Newport Bay, the nautical decorations of a New England-style sailing club. The Newport Bay is the biggest of all the hotels, with 1,100 rooms. In fact, it's the biggest hotel in Europe and can have 3,000 guests a night.
Your room is in the east wing on the 5th floor. Room number 305. Have a nice day, sir. Thank you. You're welcome.
The hotel is a half a mile from one end of it to the other. That's a lot of corridor to carpet and clean, and a long walk back for any guest who's left something in the lobby, as Andre Willie knows only too well. He's a real Disneyland fan. In fact, he's been to the park so often he's lost count.
I've been coming here since it first opened in 1992, and we've come pretty much every year since. I mean, this year I've been 3 times already this year, and it's just such a lovely place to come to. It's so peaceful and relaxed. You can get away from it all, or you can go and have the hurly-burly of the rides, whichever you want.
He was so impressed after his first visit to a Disney theme park that he got a part-time job at one of their stores, and he still can't get enough.
You're right in the heart of it. Nothing intrudes. There's no real world anymore, and you can just completely escape and just have a wonderful time.
It's the detail that makes the Disney magic that kids of all ages enjoy. Stay with us to find out how they make real movie magic and how Disney can send you to the moon. Stepping into this part of Disneyland Paris takes you into the world of the future. Only this is no techno zone. This is the future as imagined by great European writers and explorers more than 100 years ago. Among them, a world-famous French novelist who wrote one of the earliest space adventures. Jules Verne is considered the father of science fiction. And it was a story he wrote in the 1800s about being fired out of a cannon from the Earth to the moon that inspired the most popular attraction in Discoveryland. Space Mountain is the park's newest, biggest, and most expensive roller coaster. But this is a ride with a twist, several of them, plus a corkscrew and a total loop, all of which you do in the dark, because this is a journey from Earth into space.
We read the novel again and again, and saw this wonderful story with a cannon, with a kaboom. We decided that we would create that cannon for Disneyland Paris too.
The man who spent 2 years of his life making that human cannon a reality is Mike Kent.
It was a challenge. It was a big challenge because there were lots of things on this attraction that had never really been attempted before.
For a start, shooting people out of a cannon uphill. And then doing that every 30 seconds or so. That's unique. When you get fired to the moon on Space Mountain, you go from 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds. But one of the secrets of the ride's success is in slowing people down.
At the top of the catapult, there's a few seconds of weightlessness as you go over the top of the catapult, which simulates the moon shot of the cannon. And if you get the speed wrong at the top of the catapult, you don't get that feel of weightlessness.
Changing the speed of the cars and how far apart they are on the ride is the key to safety also. It's so complex, it's all controlled by computer. Well, 5 computers, in fact.
During the 3 seconds of launch, there are 5 computers that run in synchronization to guarantee the safety of the launch. And I believe that's the same number that checked the launch for a space shuttle. So for the 3 seconds that the train is in flight on the catapult, it's analogous to a space shuttle launch.
In a locked room is the roller coaster's nerve center, which TV cameras have never been allowed into before now.
If you look at the size of the wiring loom here, you get an idea for how complex the whole thing really is.
Each of these wires is attached to a sensor on the track, feeding back information to the computers, which check and cross-check for any glitches. Another thing that visitors don't get to see is the music. It's like movie music. You don't notice it at first, but you'd sure miss it if it wasn't there. It was specially written for the ride by one of Steven Spielberg's favorite composers, and the way you get to hear it is totally unique. Mike allowed us exclusive access to one of the maintenance rooms to explain how the onboard sound system works.
Each part of the ride has its own audio track, its own theme. The vehicle itself knows exactly where it is in the ride, and it chooses the music to play for that portion of the ride. And all the musical elements are stored within this box here, and they're stored as a digital data on what's called a flashcard. And the system, as it moves through the ride, steps from flashcard to flashcard, playing the music.
And the way you get to hear it is a surprise too.
There's 6 speakers delivering CD quality sound. Underneath the seats there's a bass bin that gives you the warmth from the music. Either side of you there are these mid-range units, and then up in the headrest there are tweeters, which give you the real high-frequency buzz from the music. And this was the first time that anybody had put this type of technology into a roller coaster. You know, the guys that did this literally wrote the book as they were doing it. It's
such a wow, even world-famous astronauts have given it the thumbs up.
Buzz Aldrin was there to try the attraction, and it said it was nearly as impressive as the first time for him. So we knew we had been successful in creating this attraction, because even Buzz Aldrin told us that it was really very, very good.
Right next door to Space Mountain is a brand new attraction. Honey, I Shrunk the Audience takes a familiar idea and gives it a 21st century twist. This isn't just a movie, it's an experience you see, hear, and feel.
Absolutely fantastic. Best thing in the whole park, I would say.
Really good, excellent. Very, very good. It's amazing. Yes, it's like a dream.
People arriving at the attraction are told they'll be part of an awards ceremony for crazy inventor Wayne Zielinski. But as with all the Honey movies, things don't go to plan. The professor's incredible shrinking machine gets turned on you, the audience. And so with the help of some Disney magic, you shrink.
When I actually shrunk the audience, you wonder where you're going, 'cause it all sort of sinks down.
And the
Brilliant.
dog at the end with the sneeze, and it all soaks in.
It's brilliant, I recommend it.
To create this experience was a massive construction job. 3 shifts worked 24 hours a day to dig out the pit. Above it was suspended a moving floor that in itself weighed 100 tons. Add another 50 tons when you have 600 people sitting down, and you have a major engineering feat. But that's just the start of the special effects.
It's perfect for those who long for the companionship of a pet, none of the associated mess or mice. More power. Too much! Too much!
A special camera was used to create the visuals. Plus, a mass of lasers and fiber optics. In fact, the whole theater is packed full of hidden special effects. 30 miles of electric cables were installed, plus 3 miles of air pipes and a mass of water pipes. All hidden from the public to create not just a visual, but a multi-sensory experience.
The audience is a very important part of this, because anytime you get 600 people gathered together and experiencing the same event simultaneously, there is a reaction, and the award ceremony has amazing effects on this audience.
This dimensional duplicator was developed right here. So now all we need is something to duplicate. Commencing copy mode. What? Turn it off. I don't know how. Turn it off. What do you mean you don't know how? I've only seen you do it to work it. I only showed me how to turn it on. Oh. Where are all the lights going?
It's very real, very scary sometimes for a little one.
Yeah, the mice was good.
Oh, it's disgusting.
When the mouse went up and down my legs, that was very scary.
My snake, I think he might be over there. Can you find him for me?
The tricks that we use to get the audience totally wrapped up in the experience are surprises and part of our wonderful, mysterious technology.
Look, just stay in your seats, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll blow you up as soon as possible.
Then you can see how Disney does big and go where cameras have never been before. Behind the scenes at the Disney Parade. It's mid-afternoon in Disneyland Paris, and there's a growing sense of excitement. Long before the spectacle begins, families line the street to get the best view. It's the Disney Parade. With floats 30 feet high, all the favorite Disney characters, and a troupe of colorful dancers, it's a major production. It's called the Imaginations Parade because the idea is to represent all the nations of the world for the new millennium. Each continent has its own float surrounded by dancers from nearby countries. One of the most important people behind the scenes is costume designer Sue LaCache. It's her job to dream up outlandish outfits for the Imaginations Parade, using the talents of her costume makers and a wealth of wonderful fabrics. She spent years designing costumes for major stage productions and films, and won an Emmy for one of the movies she worked on. But creating outfits for a daily show outdoors has brought her surprising challenges.
Believe it or not, even in the sun, the fabrics fade very, very fast, much quicker than you'd ever imagine. All the costumes are cleaned every single day, and we really do have to choose our fabrics and our materials very, very carefully.
The practical problems aside, it's not easy making costumes that turn people into continents. It needs a lot of imagination. Take Canada, for example. How would you represent it?
I couldn't at first think of something, and then in the end I thought, oh, why not a snowball? And I think they really enjoy wearing them, actually. There's the Chinese girl. The skirt, I thought of a Chinese lantern. I used a nylon fabric over a wire frame, and then we painted in a traditional Chinese design.
Everyone enjoys the parade, but the hours of preparation beforehand have always been kept secret, until now. Disney is so sensitive about the magic it makes in this building that even the staff aren't allowed to bring in their cameras. Now, we can reveal the backstage process for the first time. Dozens of dancers gather here to start putting on their makeup and costumes. Then they're transformed into the fantasy creatures of the Imaginations Parade. Miss Asia leads the procession and so gets made up first.
It takes nearly an hour to get ready, and the parade lasts 20 to 25 minutes. You do wonder, all this for just 20 minutes? Is it worth it?
It's the huge investment in time and effort that makes it work. Upstairs from the makeup room, there's a whole floor devoted exclusively to wigs worn around the park. 60 performers have to be made ready daily for a show that changes every few months. And the people taking part have a chance to create their own moment of magic.
It's really the children, the expression on their faces, and I play with them. I mean, I love to blow them kisses. It's full of games like that, which is really nice.
Once they're finished in makeup, there's the daily dance rehearsal. The steps are easy, and for most performers, it's a way of warming up before they hit the streets and the waiting crowds. For some, it's also a chance to get used to their costumes and to get into character, since they often change roles. A cowboy one day, a snowball the next. The parade is one of the things that draws visitors from all over Europe to Disneyland Paris. But it wasn't always that way. When Disney decided to open a theme park in France back in the 80s, it was taking a big risk. Though at the time, the idea seemed to make perfect sense.
Building a Disneyland in Europe was almost like coming home. Many of the fairy tales that Walt Disney ended up depicting in his films, in fact, had European roots. So this is one reason why we feel very comfortable here in Europe. Secondly, of course, Europe is a major population center, and in fact, within a 2-hour flight of Disneyland Paris, there are 310 million people. So this, from a commercial reason, and this from a creative reason, really made Europe a very logical location for a Disney park.
The French government was right behind the idea and gave generous financial support, but the French public was less sure. And when the construction started on farming land just outside Paris, so did the criticisms. It was a huge construction project, one of the biggest in Europe in the whole of the 20th century. And some people in France were scared about the scale and impact of what they saw as an invasion of American values. They called it a cultural Chernobyl. Despite the glitzy ceremony, the first few years after opening in 1992 were disappointing, with fewer visitors than expected. But the initial confidence was borne out. Things gradually did improve, and now the park welcomes more than 12 million visitors a year. But the managers have learned a few lessons along the way.
We have to accommodate the fact that European guests have slightly different tastes in terms of their food, in terms of the type of merchandise they buy, from the tastes of Americans, and in fact slightly different from the tastes in Japan, where the Walt Disney Company also operates a park.
One of the biggest changes they made was to the castle. This was down to Tom Morris, a top Disney Imagineer. He decided he had to design the castle to look different from the ones in the American parks.
As Americans, we're amazed by any castle because we don't have castles in the United States. Coming back to France, we felt it was important not to build a literal castle because there are literally hundreds of castles within a 200-mile radius of here. So we had to do something different, a little bit more fantastic, more fairy tale, a little more unreal.
And there are other differences too. Since Europeans like to take time over their food, there are more sit-down restaurants. There are more covered walkways to keep visitors dry. And there are totally new attractions, such as the maze based on the Alice in Wonderland story. So, do visitors who know the American parks spot the difference?
I mean, other than the French words, it doesn't really feel like you're in France. It feels like you're in Disney, for sure.
Mama, Rapunzel.
Rapunzel, that's right. And whose house is that?
Hansel and Gretel.
Very good. You have a good memory.
But it's the unpredictable weather that really makes the biggest difference to the park in France and keeps the Imagineers busy.
We employ a number of little tricks. I don't know if you could call them trade secrets or not. They're simple things like lighting, having lots of incandescent lighting that's very warm. The color palette that we chose for the park was definitely warmer. At Walt Disney World, it's a little bit cooler. We want to cool you down because it's so hot there. Here, we want to warm you up a bit. So that's why the castle is just a little bit pinker than it is in California, and why Main Street's got a little bit more chroma in it, and the rock work has a little bit more heat.
We'll be telling you the secrets of how they made this mountain and the roller coaster that runs through it in just a few moments. But first, a question. Could this be the biggest pantry in the world? There are some things Disney does the same the world over. One of them is making the whole park like a movie set. And that's not just setting the scene, it's creating the whole production. In Frontierland, Disney pays attention to detail on a grand scale to make visitors believe they've entered a 19th century boomtown in the American West. Big Thunder Mountain sets the tone. It looks like a real chunk of America transported to France, but it's actually a vast creation of cement and paint over a massive metal structure.
Building Big Thunder Mountain was an enormous, enormous project. We have on our staff the greatest rock work sculptors and painters in the world. Anywhere in the world, you will not find better craftsmen than those that we have.
The result is a very convincing mountain that tells a story about a mine and a runaway train and is home to a great roller coaster ride.
Big Thunder is always one of the most popular attractions in all of the Disney parks. It's just a great classic blending of high thrill, whimsy, and comic events. Parents can ride it, but 10-year-olds can ride it as well.
We asked the man who helped make and maintain the ride to walk us along the track and to give us a never-before-seen view of this Disney attraction.
The first impression that the guest gets first is he's plunged into darkness, so he doesn't know where he is. And the first thing he sees as he comes round the corner, there's a little light at the end of the tunnel, which is right at the top, and he just doesn't know what to expect. And he pops up just here. He's taken onto the chain, which hauls up the train by virtue of hooks, which are underneath each of 4 of the wagons, and it makes a lovely mining clacky sound as the train runs up. Slowly but surely, and you come out through a cascade and you're at the top of the mountain, and it's from that point on that you start your runaway uncontrolled ride. The train comes along off that section, you dip down at the last minute here, and you obviously believe you're going to go straight down into the river. In order to create that effect, when the train just comes over the crest, there are sensors which trigger off the high-pressure jet, which gives you the impression that you've really gone down into the water. So basically, you just finished a long downhill run, you've just done the splashdown, you come round onto the bottom of this lift, and you're just breathing a sigh of relief, getting ready for the next drop, and basically what we set up here are a number of animated figures. There's a goat here, just behind you there are a couple of donkeys, and it basically brings you back into the story and lets you calm down before you get dropped again for the next runaway section of the ride.
Although the mountain itself isn't really from America, most of the things inside it are. The station at the Big Thunder Mine has genuine mining tools collected by Disney Imagineers.
The tools had been collected from old miners and from auctions and from people who had no use for it anymore. And this was great that there was now a use for them. They were so pleased to be able to give us these things and know that they were going to be used.
Genuine items from the era help Disney Imagineers make Frontierland seem real.
People came and offered them things, and then they would just spot things in fields and go and ask the owners if they would be prepared to sell them. They spent a lot of time doing it so that everything that we have here is totally authentic.
Well, maybe not the horseshoe prints, but the overall effect definitely gives you a taste of the Wild West. And if soaking up the atmosphere gives you a pioneer-sized appetite, there are plenty of places to stop and eat. The restaurants range from fast food to formal, and there are food carts dotted around the park. And the cuisine is a mix of French and American, so don't worry, it's not all frog's legs and frite. But serving up 150,000 meals a day requires a truly awesome operation. This is the kitchen cupboard at Disneyland Paris. A warehouse big enough to store all the fruit, vegetables, ketchup, ice cream, Coke, and cookies that 30,000 visitors a day could possibly want to eat. Coordinating it all is the man with a shopping list from hell.
Well, believe it or not, we are serving more than 28 million meals every year in Disneyland Paris. So in order to serve all those meals, we have to buy and store a lot of products. For example, if we look at these items, Coca-Cola, we are using more than 6 million liters of Coca-Cola every year in Disneyland Paris, and that's a lot of food and beverages.
They see 20 million rolls each year, enough ice cream to fill 200 swimming pools, and 1,500 tons of fries. Burgers and fries are still a firm favorite with many visitors, and providing enough of them is a real challenge. Hyperion in Discoveryland is the biggest fast food restaurant in the whole of Europe. Lunchtimes in the kitchen there are a frenzy.
It's very, very busy. It's amazing. It's kind of war. Let's do hamburgers. We are in high season. We are selling nearly 13,000 hamburgers per day. We are the biggest fast food in Europe, selling nearly 3 tons of fries at high season. On a busy day, we are 46 in the kitchen during the day. It's a very, very busy place.
Just down the road at the Toy Story restaurant is an exclusive.
Hello, can I have a pizza burger, please?
The Pizza Burger. The hamburger in a pizza-based bun was invented here in the Paris park. And they're so confident it'll catch on, they've taken out a copyright on it. Well, we'll get back to you on that one. But don't think it's all burgers and buns.
I mean, look at that. I mean, you have tomatoes, grapes, apples, which are coming every day, twice a day in fact, to serve our restaurants with fresh product to make a nice meal for our guests.
Delicious fresh food to suit every taste is handmade here, including luxury treats like this Cinderella chocolate slipper. In fact, chocolate is a Disneyland Paris specialty. The park employs a chocolatier, That's a top French chef who specializes in making sculptures out of the substance we all love.
Ok. Ce que j'aime dans le chocolat, c'est avant tout le.
What I like most about chocolate is the challenge. I mean, every day working with it is different. You have to have real feel for this stuff, and that's why I like it.
They say you can have too much of a good thing, but not Thierry. He uses about 2 tons of chocolate every year. His latest creation is an abstract of a woman. For this, he made the accessories, purse, and perfume bottles all out of chocolate. This is no dessert. This is art. It may look too good to eat, but magic is sometimes even edible. When you've digested, we'll be back with the real story of the most popular show in Disneyland Paris. At Disneyland Paris, wherever you walk in the park, you're never far from greenery. And that's because the plants here aren't just for show. They're actually being used to create the hidden Disney magic. Behind the scenes, there's a small army of gardeners looking after 12,000 trees and more than 100,000 shrubs. They plant up to 1 million new flowers in the park every single year. Keeping the plants well watered in summer is an even bigger challenge. Because of the sheer size of the place, 3,500 miles of water pipes run just below the park's surface. And it's Stefan's job to make sure all the plants get not too much, not too little. It's all done by computer, so he can operate it by remote control wherever he is in the world.
I love this new technology that's permit me to contact the park and modify the irrigation everywhere in the world where I am. I call the computer, I can turn on irrigation, turn off irrigation, and I can do everything.
Looking after a garden this big is an around-the-clock job. But while others are hard at work, the fun goes on. Just outside the park, there are dozens of restaurants, bars, and shows to choose from. And this is the most popular one of all. The Wild West is alive and well in Disneyland Paris. Thanks to a show that recreates the famous world tour of Buffalo Bill back in the 19th century.
Mesdames et messieurs.
There's cowboys and cattle scenes, cavalcades and shooting contests, all entertainingly done. With daredevil rodeo games, a dinner served to your seat, and even wild buffaloes in the ring. This is a real spectacle. 3.5 million people have enjoyed the show. So what's the secret of its success?
I'm a grown man getting paid to play cowboys and Indians. Most everybody I know would like to. Has played cowboys, has loved the Western movie, the legend of the Old West in the United States. That's that romance of the Old West brought to you real, brought to you up close. That's got to be it. That's got to be the secret.
This is Disneyland's very own horse whisperer.
Thank you, everybody.
It's Thierry's job to pick the horses and the riders for the show and train them to do the stunts. It takes something special. There's so much going on in a performance that could frighten an animal.
You work him first in the brain. You need to have confidence to you first. When you walk with the horses, you just teach him the basic. Turn, stop, back up. After that, when he understands what you ask him, you just go on the second step, trot, after low, until he knows everything.
But the real key to the show is in the riders. It's an incredibly skilled job, and Thierry has to choose them carefully. He told us how.
Yeah, I need to see something in the eyes, you know, just something clear, you know, and a connection between the heart and the brain. I think you need that. A guy just with his brain is useless.
Brock was one of those hand-picked for the show when he was a cowboy in America.
For me, it was a once-in-a-lifetime thing that when they called me up to see if I wanted to work in a Wild West show in France, I said, yeah, no problem.
But it's not easy. What you don't see is how tough it is on all those involved and how dangerous it can get.
It's hard, and it's hard on people and hard on horses. There's a lot of running and stopping and turning. About a year ago, a year and a half, my horse fell, and he fell on my leg and broke my ankle, and I was out for 4 months with that. But we have, you know, it's a live, fast-paced show.
It demands great horsemanship, incredible physical fitness, courage, and a sense of spectacle. The show claims to be very close to the one done by the original Buffalo Bill.
How true is it? We've got real Indians, we've got real cowboys, we've got real American quarter horses, real American buffalo, you know, a real stagecoach. It doesn't get much more real than that. One of the things that I like about it, in fact, is a lot of the guys in the show are very serious about who they are and what they're presenting in terms of their heritage, and that goes for the Indians and the cowboys.
I guess the cattle trail scene is the best for me because it's a chance to just kind of show the public what we really do back where we come from. There are still cowboys working cows.
We went behind the scenes to find out what it takes to keep the show running twice a day, 7 nights a week, every week of the year. And the first thing is 572 tons of hay. They have 56 horses, but only half of them work at one time during the show. So at least they all get a day off. There are also longhorns to feed and water daily. Not to mention a dozen wild animals, the bison. They can be dangerous and have to be kept separate from the rest. They really are wild animals, and only Thierry and their tamer are allowed into the pen to see them. Our cameraman said he'd take the risk until one of the beasts turned mean. These magnificent creatures provide some of the most spellbinding scenes in a show where all the elements behind the scenes come together to create a uniquely Disney spectacle. But the show never really ends in Europe's most popular theme park. The magic keeps on coming. On this trip, we've uncovered the minds and machines that made the first coaster to shoot you to the moon. Gone where the cameras have never been allowed before to show the hidden work behind the parade. Lifted the lid on Disney cooking. And got the inside story on redesigning this white knuckle ride. But there's so much more to see on a visit to Disneyland Paris. You'll still believe in magic.